Hey friends, welcome back. I'm excited to spend this time with you today. And I wanted to spend today talking about the importance of going inward, the importance of introspection, especially in the season of winter, and especially right now. So we have just passed Imbolc. Imbolc is February 1st, and it is halfway between the winter solstice and the spring equinox, which means that what we get to relish in winter is quickly going to come to an end here, very quickly. And what we get to enjoy in winter is a time to rest, a time to restore, a time to dream, a time to go inward and really ask ourselves if we're happy with our life, if we're not happy with our life, what we want to see change, really asking our soul what it wants, which is something that I think we're not really taught to do in our culture, at least here in the West. So today I wanted to just share with you a little bit of information about going inward, the importance of going inward, and maybe some ideas to help you do that as we're in this winter time of the year where we can take advantage of our natural tendency to want to kind of hibernate, right? To want to go inward a little bit more. So when we talk about going inward, this is something that I find a lot of folks shy away from. People have a lot of fear over going inward. They're afraid of, if they get quiet, what they're going to hear in their self-talk and their self-chatter. They're afraid of the changes that might come from what they hear. They're afraid that they might not be good enough. They're afraid that they're not worthy. I want you to know that all of these fears are normal. There's other things we might fear. We might fear that if we take the time to go inward, we're actually slowing down the work that we need to do, right? So this is me. I have a tendency to just want to get up and get to work right away in the morning. I have a hard time giving myself permission to do a mindfulness practice, to take some time to breathe, to meditate, maybe do some sound work, to read my Bible, read some kind of holy text that will uplift me, read some personal development, whatever it is. I have a hard time giving myself permission to do that because, first of all, I get a lot of gratification from my work, but secondly, there is behind that a mentality of lack, that if I take the time to be mindful, that I'm actually not going to get everything done that I need to get done. The other thing that I find is that I think that I'm going to get the answers that I need in my life, the direction that I need in my life, on big levels, on small levels. I think I'm going to get that from activity. I think I'm going to get that from doing the research and looking into something. And I think I'm going to get that by making my lists. And I think I'm going to get that by talking to a bunch of people or going to appointments. When really I have found, when I get serious about going inward, that usually the answers are immediately right there on the surface. So I'll give you an example of this. As if you've listened to any of my previous podcasts, I have had a lot of physical struggles. I have a lot of mysterious things going on in my body, things that haven't been able to be diagnosed, things that I have found temporary helps for that haven't helped long term. In some respects, I have found help for things, but other things have gotten worse. And sometimes living inside my body is really a challenge for me. It's been difficult to make peace with this part of my life and to make friends with my body and to know that my body is actually working really hard and trying really hard to keep me going. So, when it comes to my health, I've never thought about finding the answers inward that I've been looking for. I always want to go and I want to read the medical journals and I want to look at the research and I want to listen to the podcasts from the health experts. I also have been told in my young life that listening to my heart or listening to my soul is a dangerous thing to do because that is a place where you can be deceived, and the heart is, deceitful and desperately wicked, and we can't really trust what the heart wants because the heart can often operate from a place of selfishness, self-indulgence, and those kinds of things. So the whole idea of going inward for me has been a journey, spiritually as well as physically. But this last winter, in the beginning of December or so, I was really starting to have some physical symptoms that I haven't experienced in quite a long time. And I was feeling really frustrated by that. And I was like, "Ugh, I've already looked at all the research. I've already done all the things. I've already talked to all the people. I'm doing all the things that are the right things to do." So, what I just felt something prompt me to do was to go inward with that. And so I did. I got really quiet and I really started to listen to what my soul was telling me. And I just asked my soul a question. And I was like, what do I need to do here to help myself? And I'm telling you, the answers were immediately there. And I'm not saying this is how it's always going to be, but they were really available to me in that moment. And the answers in this particular case were that I needed to tune into my body even more when it came to my eating habits, my supplementation, even exercise. These are things I felt I was doing, but I realized I was doing them lip service more than I was actually really listening. And if there's nothing that 2020 hasn't taught us for 2021 is that we probably all need to listen better. And the other answer was that I needed to really look into my gut health. And I was like, oh, well, I thought that I had already looked into that. But there is just something there when I went inward that told me, no, you need to look into that some more. And it was funny. I just asked in prayer during that time for further direction and answers. And within a week or two, I had some things in front of me that helped me to figure out more on a practical level what it looked like to move forward with this directive. But if I hadn't looked inward first to my soul and what my soul was wanting or what my soul was telling me, I wouldn't have heard that and I wouldn't have gotten the answers that I needed. And the result of that has been that I am definitely on the beginning of another layer of healing, finding out, man, my gut really was way more disrupted than I thought, and having way more autoimmune response than I thought, and having way more inflammatory cause, and actually could be the explanation of a lot of the things that my body has struggled with for so many years. So, taking some new steps with that, we'll see. I'll report on that in some other podcast. But I wanted to just share that very vulnerably because, here I am, a holistic lifestyle expert and educator, and I should know all these things, right? But really, what is right for me and my body, and what is right for you and your body, is going to be very different day to day, and is going to be very different person to person. So, as much as it's great to listen to experts and look at those studies, there are other ways of knowing, and there are other ways of knowing that are just as legitimate as reading a study or talking to a health expert. So that was one example of going inward that was really, really effective for me, and it made me realize just how much more of a priority I need to make this for myself. If nothing else, just during the winter season when I have more of an opportunity to take more time. So when we go inward, we can ask our soul questions, and this is going to be different for everybody, and maybe not everybody identifies with the idea of a soul. But maybe you can identify with the idea of like a gut feeling or your heartstrings being tugged. Okay. So any of those ideas that resonate for you. For me, I feel my soul, and for me, my soul resides somewhere between my heart chakra and my solar plexus chakra. That's where it hangs out for me. So when I go inward, I allow my body to get really quiet and I close my eyes, and there's nothing necessarily in particular that I do, to be honest with you, except first, I always pray and I ask God and I ask the divine for protection and for guidance, and to prevent me from any form of deception. But then after that, I kind of let that go, and I realized that that inner voice was given to me for a reason as well. And then I start to listen. And sometimes I just ask it a blatant question like, what do I need to do to help my body? Or what do I need to do for the next podcast episode, or what do I need to do for improving my relationships, whatever the case may be. And the answers for me come back in words. For some people, the answers come back in pictures. For some people, the answers come back in full sentences. For some people, the answers come back in more of an impression. And sometimes you might not always get an answer right away, but you have a sense that an answer is coming. So not dissimilar to prayer in this way, although I don't feel like this is necessarily praying to myself. I think it's more just listening to my inner guidance. And I feel this is important because I do feel that the body and the soul and the mind have their own intelligence, and they are tuned into things that our conscious mind cannot even get close to touching. And when you consider that so much of our perception, they say 98 to 99% of what is there in this reality we cannot perceive with our eyes. Our eyes and our brains cannot be the only way of figuring things out. It just can't be. There's other things going on that we can tune into, that we can touch. Okay, when we go inward, we often find the answers that we're seeking, and sometimes it's going to take less time, and sometimes it's going to take more time. So, one of the things that you have to be careful with and that you have to come to terms with when you start to go inward is that there is no timeline for the answers to come to you. It's the same as in prayer, it's the same as in manifestation. Your intention and your belief is important. Your listening is important, but the timeline for the answer cannot necessarily be pushed or rushed. However, sometimes the answer will be immediately available to you, and I think that is because ourselves, our souls, our bodies are actually screaming at us a lot of the time, and we're just too busy doing other things to listen. And so our body, our soul has probably been trying to get our attention for some time before we tune in. So I think that a lot of times we're going to find that that answer is actually much more on the surface than we realize. When we go inward, we're going to often find the direction that we're looking for, and this could be, something really practical, like how to organize your day today, or it might be something really big, like a big life decision that you need to make. One of the things that Imbolc is so perfectly poised for is to listen to our souls about the things that we need to let go of. And maybe that's a whole other podcast episode. But one of the questions that you might ask your soul is, what am I hanging on to right now that is not serving me, the planet, the universe, and the people around me that I can let go of? So ask those questions. Also, when we go inward to ourselves, for me, I also experience this as an opportunity to connect to the divine. Now, this is a concept that is going to be really different for all of us, and whatever yours is right now, that's great. I'm going to tell you how it is for me, and maybe there's something that will speak to you or you can learn from that, and maybe you can tell me what it's like for you, and maybe there's something that I can learn. For me, having worked with the chakras for, gosh, a lot of years, and being really, really aware of that kind of energy in my body, I know that my body's own inherent energy is part of that, but with the crown chakra, I definitely sense almost a physical, it's not almost, it is a physical sensation of connection to something greater than myself. Some people talk about this as being their higher self. Some people talk about it as source or the universe, big U. For me, I definitely sense it as a connection to source or the universe, which in my concept and in my faith is like God, like the big guy who is beyond everything that we see, like the biggest. It's one of those things that's hard to put into words, right? But I sense that connection to that. So when I go inward, I don't just feel like that's an opportunity to connect with myself, although sometimes I keep it at just that when I feel like I'm so crazy and chaotic and busy that I can't even like get my breath to be controlled. I might just stick here with myself. But I also have noticed that this is a beautiful time to open up to that higher energy. And for me, that is like just simply an intention of being open to that energy from that higher place and asking for it. I ask for God. I ask for spirit to come and to be with me, and not just to come and to be with me, but to also inhabit me and speak to me in that way. That is something that in my faith that I believe strongly in, is that that spirit can inhabit me and can speak to me in this way. Now, I'm talking about this from the Christian faith. Everybody has a different concept of this, and I know that there's a lot of Christians that would hear what I just said and be totally weirded out by that, and that's okay. This is just where I'm at in my process. But what I want to say about this is that going inward doesn't, a lot of times we have a resistance to this because we're like, well, that's just all about me. When really it's not just about you, it's about getting clear about you, but it's also an opportunity for you to hook up to or check into or connect with that higher source, that divine, that so much of us know that ultimately that's where our energy and our fuel comes from. And when I ask my soul what my soul really most needs, the answer that I get back every single time is that I need time to just soak in and bask in that divine energy and spend that time in worship and in connection with God. So those are some opportunities for you to consider when you think about going inward, that's also an opportunity to connect with divine. Now, you're probably sitting in here and you're like saying, okay, well, how does that even work, Erin? Okay, so there's different techniques that people use. Some people do different mantras and meditation techniques like malas or things like that. Some people focus on their breathing. To me, those things are kind of distracting personally from me actually connecting to my soul, because to me this is almost like a physical sensation that I experience. And when I'm doing something with my hands or I'm doing something with my mouth, sometimes that can be just like something that can get in the way of that for me. Sometimes it can be really effective though. It just depends on what my state of mind is. For me personally, something that I'm finding to be extremely consistent, however, in my experience of connecting and going inward, is sound therapy, right? Sound therapy or sound baths. So, for example, this morning I was feeling like, man, I just really want the for the month of February, I really want it to be a priority for myself to get back into a mindfulness discipline of some kind, because even with going into winter, I still had some huge projects I was wanting to get finished up. And now those are done, and I can just feel that my soul is needing food. So this morning, what I did is I got my Tibetan bowl. And so those of you listening, you're just going to have to listen. But those of you that are watching, you can see this is a very large Tibetan bowl that I love very much. And what I did is I just brought the bowl with me. And as I was in the mindfulness, as I was in that place of connecting to my inner self, the moment I would start to get distracted, I would come back to that sound. And for me, this sound is something that I can imagine and actually feel myself and my soul inhabiting. And then experiencing the sensation of the sound and the experience of the decay of the sound, the different frequencies of the sound, the way the sound moves into silence. It helped me to enter that place of mindfulness. But more than mindfulness, it helps me to enter that place of soulfulness. A Tibetan bowl especially has so many overtones, so many frequencies in it at one time. The theory behind it and my experience is becoming that when we're in that chaotic, distracted state of mind, it helps to clear out all of that stuff and get us out of our monkey brain. And it also helps to liberate and clear negative energies that we might be hanging on to, even traumas. And so what I did is I just used the bowl as an opportunity to move into that place where I was going inward, whatever you want to call that. And man, did it work. And it worked quickly. It worked for me much more quickly than some of the other things that I might have done in the past, such as, okay, now I'm going to work on my breathing. Now I'm going to visualize this thing or that thing. To me, after a while, visualization becomes its own task list that I have to check off. And then I'm right back into my thinking place instead of feeling into what my soul needs. So this is something that has become part of my spiritual practice. And I don't even know if I want to say that it's just a spiritual practice. This is a physical practice as well, that allows the brain to go into that deep state of relaxation so that we can really much more easily turn inward. So this work, what I'm talking about in this podcast, the going inward, This is what we're going to be working on in the February installment of my members only collective, my members collective, which is a members only subscription group. And in that group, you get a monthly sound bath or sound meditation. This month, it is going to be Tibetan Bowl based. You get some kind of an aromatherapy or herbal recipe. You get a bit of a reflection from me, and then special discounts in that group. So I'll be putting a link to that group. The group content will be available starting the first week of February for the rest of the month. You have access to that anytime you want. You can actually do a little bit of a sound bath every single day with me as part of the February group. So I'm going to do a shorter sound bath that is designed more for daily or regular practice rather than just one really long one that's designed for deep meditation. Because every month is different, the gift that every month has to give us is different, and what we have to leverage in this month is taking opportunity to go inward with the time that we have left in winter and really connect with our soul and what our soul is wanting. So I hope to see you in the Members Collective. You can go to bit.ly/Members Collective and get yourself subscribed. And if you liked this episode, please comment, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell if you're listening on your podcast app. I always appreciate those 5-star reviews, and I will see you next time.